Hello, and welcome back to the Victory Road World Cup, brought to you by Metafi, GG Tour, and Elgato. Once again, I am Hayden McTavish, and I am joined for the second time, and soon to be a third time, by Evan Wang. How are you doing, Evan?
I'm doing well. I'm having a lot of fun with you casting all these matches, and this match we have ahead of us will be a match that has stakes, and this is against Greece versus Uruguay in Group I.
Yeah, some of the earlier matches we've shown were more for like player pride or being able to establish a team and all of those pieces. Like still good matches, but this match is one where the stakes are extraordinarily high. This match, along with the others that have yet to be played, could totally decide which team winds up making it into the next stage of this tournament.
Yeah, all eyes are on the remaining teams that have yet to secure their group stage spot. And real quick here in this Group I, Brazil is dominating with a 3-0 win, and Guatemala unfortunately is out with a 0-3 record. So Uruguay and Greece are now the two teams remaining to vie for that only one spot to get into the group stages. And in this situation here, because of how weeks 1 and 2 played out, Uruguay just needs to tie, while Greece really needs to fight for this win. And we have on screen, right, like on stream, Kosta, the manager, having to take that responsibility. And we do see the teams being tied up here. Are there any interesting Pokemon that you see in front of us?
Well, first of all, just the games are so close here. These teams are absolutely neck and neck. This is such a high stakes way to end this week for these teams. But yes, as you mentioned, we've got a whole lot of Pokemon coming out, especially from Uruguay's side. I'm seeing an Alolan Executor, and I'm seeing a Lugia on the other side. All teams pulling out all the stops they can for unique choices to try to be able to clinch this week. Wow.
Last week, Costa is like trying to remind us, the stream team, that Greece has been using Lugia now and then, and in weeks 1 and 2 they managed to win those games with Lugia, but we see on stream here, sorry Costa, Lugia actually lost. And then one more thing I wanted to note from Uruguay's side is like having a country that hasn't that doesn't have a lot of like presence in the live event scene, right? Yeah, so being able to bring unique restricted pairs. We actually see Groudon Kyogre, we actually see Calyrex Ice Dialga. That could be something that gives you an edge, right? Because these teams are not as well known, so you really have to play a best of 3 really well and figure out moves and items along the way. So having that element of surprise might be what is helping Uruguay here in this competition, and it seems to be working out.
Yeah, such a tall order for Guzmán and Kosta to be able to prepare for this particular set, seeing all the crazy things that both teams have up their sleeves. Like, you have to prepare for so much from your opponent's side, but you might also be trying to use some of the neat tricks that you know from your team to be able to sort of try to edge things out based on a read. A whole lot of team building, like mind games going on in this particular situation.
Yeah, so both players probably did their homework, and I myself did my homework too. And my homework here is that both players played in last year's World Cup. And unfortunately, Greece and Uruguay got eliminated in the first stage, so this is their very chance to move on and qualify to the group stage and outdo themselves last year. From Costa's side, last year he actually had a 1-1 record. He was the manager as well, and then in this season of 2022, in week 1 he used Calyrex Ice Kyogre. Week 1 he used Calyrex Shadow Kyogre. Week 2 Calyrex Ice Kyogre. So he seems to be confident with the Kyogre variant of teams and not choose to bring a Zacian, which is interesting. And then for Guzmán's side, in World Cup 2021, he had a okay record of 1-2, and he actually used Xerneas for all his games. So seems to be someone who tends to use a team favor comfort over something that is a little bit more wild. So in week 1, he's actually using Zacian Groudon. Week 2 didn't play, but week 3 here we see in front of us a Zacian Kyogre team that is pretty much standard, but could be interesting with that Whimsicott and Katana pick. And Costa is bringing the spice here.
Yeah, a whole lot of interesting things from Kosta. So right off the bat, both players agreeing Kyogre plus Whimsicott is a really good thing to bring to this week. They both have agreed on that, and that's it. We've got like Calyrex Shadow versus Zacian. We've got a Regigigas and a Weezing on one side, and then a Regieleki as the electric type, versus sort of a more conventional like Kartana and Zapdos and Incineroar as a supporting cast for Guzmán. So a whole lot that I think could be coming out from Kosta's side, and just so much for Guzmán to account for in this.
Yeah, so it kind of has to come down to how you train your Zacian and Kyogre and how you manage this kind of matchup going up against a potential Weezing and Regigigas lead. You always have to account for that. I think Kosta, in week 1, his Calyrex Ice Kyogre team was more towards the offensive variant with a Landorus, I think, and didn't bring the Weezing and the Regigigas, so he might be confident in this matchup to bring it to kind of give Guzmán a run for his money and add a little bit of surprise there. So I'm very interested to see how this play out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're about to see what Pokemon each side has picked as their leads. Looks like that common set of Pokemon on Guzmán's side, the Whimsicott and the Kyogre, just starting fast and powerful versus the Whimsicott on the other side and a different powerful special spread move Pokemon.
Yeah, it could have been funny if both sides lead Whimsicott and Kyogre, but it does make sense for Kosta to bring Calyrex Shadow on this kind of team compositions. This is actually a team that managed to make top 4 in one of our Victory Road tournaments, Victory Road to Frankfurt. So this team did well, and Kosta is confident in how the team matches up into most matchups, because that tournament has so many players. So going with Calyrex Shadow, and we have a little sneak peek that it's a choice specs variant, and being able to help deal as much damage as possible on turn 1 with Whimsicott support seems to be a good strategy here.
Yeah, absolutely. The speed advantage for Calyrex is going to cause Kyogre on the other side just to protect, does not want to take damage. The opposing Whimsicott does get the taunt off though. Crucially, that goes off before the Tailwind from Whimsicott, so that means that next turn Guzmán's able to set up Tailwind without it being matched by Kosta's side. That's such a huge win of speed ties there. Astro Barrage is going to come out, going to do a lot of damage to this Whimsicott, but if it has the Focus Sash we're used to seeing, and it does, then that Whimsicott's still on the field to set up Tailwind next turn. That's such a tough spot for Kosta.
Yeah, immediately all the differences in team building come out here, and this Whimsicott strategy of taunting the opposing Whimsicott, we have seen this in these 3 years of Sword and Shield, and Guzmán is content. I think he thinks that this is the best way to play out this turn 1, and it works out amazingly, protecting the Kyogre from damage, letting Whimsicott go down to the Focus Sash, and at the same time winning that speed tie. It might be a shiny difference against the opposing, against Kosta's Whimsicott, to then get into a good position. So I think this 50% play of speed ties between both Whimsicott seems to be worth it for Guzmán.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting for Guzmán to go for it, but recognize that it was a gamble and still protecting that Kyogre and going for, maybe I'll get the taunt off before the Tailwind. If not, maybe I can at least stagger my Tailwind so I have it later. But best possible world for Guzmán here, setting up that Tailwind, and this Kyogre has free reign to do whatever it wants this turn. It's going to be that Water Spout.
Free reign in the rain, and wow, that Whimsicott actually takes it pretty handily. With a full-powered Water Spout, and does reveal that eject button item. Kosta switching out the Calyrex Ice earlier in the turn hints that he wants to protect it as much as possible. But while in this situation, having the Tailwind immediately for Kyogre to just dish off all those Water Spouts really puts Guzmán in a good position, and Kosta has to dig deep to think of a way out in this game.
Yeah, it's tough to see all the pieces that Kosta has in the back, because we get to see the teams. That's a special treat from Kosta showing us his screen. There's the Regieleki, and it has an Assault Vest, so maybe there's an angle out for Kosta, but everything else is just built on hitting fast and hard, and losing that Tailwind is just so precarious for Kosta, and I'm curious to see how he adjusts in the second game for saying, how will I get Tailwind up next time if I know that, I have to win a speed tie in order to do it?
Yeah, in all these, hyper-offensive strategies of just letting your Pokemon do as much spread damage as possible, the good news is both players have not clicked the Dynamax button, and there's still so much flexibility to choose your Dynamax target. So I feel on Kosta's end, he might be forced to get that Regieleki to Dynamax, since he knows that Whimsicott and Kyogre from the opposing end are always going to move first. And as we do see it here, you really have to go for the best possible strategy to increase your Pokemon's bulk, and I think the Regieleki is a prime target to do so. Here comes the Regieleki's Dynamax. Let's see how much impact it can make against Guzmán's team in these turns of Tailwind.
Kosta's one big tool against Kyogre is coming out now. Gonna have to contend with a helping hand from this Kyogre into potentially another Water Spout. That's gonna be a whole lot of damage, and yeah, the Water Spout comes out, and it gets the KO on the Regieleki through Dynamax and through an Assault Fist that we saw that this Regieleki has. That's incredible.
Was that a critical hit? Not at all. Wow.
What? I wonder.
Yeah.
That's so. It can't be a choice specs on that Kyogre. We saw it use Protect before. This is just. Kyogre's an incredible Pokemon, and we're seeing that once more with this Tailwind setup. There was nothing Kosta could do. Everything would be knocked out by a Water Spout on that turn.
Nice catch there, because like I was trying to remember, like did Kyogre go for a defensive move, and he went for Protect. So I think that just shows the sheer power coming out from Kyogre. And all of a sudden, that turn 1 Gambit of going for the taunt, someone in chat is saying there is a shiny difference here. Like, it might be true, because I really think that Kosta has to build the Whimsicott to be as fast as possible, to be able to go for those tricks, get your eject button away, or like go for the fastest Tailwind as possible. So everything seems to be working out well for Guzmán, and that's kind of the downside from Kosta running a more or less a hyper offensive team, that the game goes by so quickly and you suddenly run out of tools. I'm still very surprised that the Regieleki wasn't able to survive that Helping Hand Water Spout. So I'm kind of sad.
I'm curious if that was like a damage roll, or if maybe this Regieleki is just trained primarily offensively but happens to have the Assault Vest. Maybe we'll get another chance to see if it can take the second Helping Hand Water Spout in the next game. But you were saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying it was kind of sad. But then both players really have to just go back to the drawing board. For Kosta's strategy, it does make sense to lead right away with Calyrex Shadow with that choice specs to help do as much damage as possible. But Guzmán just manages to find the way out. It's a very niche thing to do, going for the taunt against your opposing Whimsicott, because some players of the highest level might not think that your opponent would just go for that risky play, and it just pays off for Guzmán. And Kosta is one game down, fighting so hard for Grease. He really needs to think of a good strategy to fight back. I think leading with Weezing and Regigigas might also be tricky, as we see how Guzmán is confident with that Whimsicott being the fastest, going for Tailwind, followed by Kyogre's very powerful Water Spout. So both sides opting to lead their special attackers, doing that very important spread damage, seem to be working well, and it paid off for Guzmán more than Kosta.
Yeah, I think something that's really important to consider going forwards is, like, we know that Kosta maybe has a way out of the situation if you can win the speed tie on the first turn, but now that you're down a game, if the next two games both come down to coin flips, that's still some pretty good odds for the opposing side, and they just need a really interesting reflection that Uruguay only needs one win and Greece needs two, so maybe they can go for some more risky plays. And we do see that you just have to switch it up, I suppose, when you're Kosta.
Oh, that's such a cool situation to be in, knowing that you have to fight so hard to win 2 games for Greece. As we do see completely different leads come out from both sides. Weezing comes into action. At the same time, Incineroar comes into action for Guzmán's side. I think kind of trying to play slow and disruptive earlier for Guzmán in this game too. Weezing Regieleki, a lead that we never see very often.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because this Whimsicott doesn't have Prankster, so the Regieleki can go first, but we know the Whimsicott has a Focus Sash, so there's not any easy way to sort of get the KO right away. Unless this Weezing is max speed or something crazy, and manages to get off the speed tie with Whimsicott to take it out. And Incineroar is able to just fake out. So Tailwind probably can go up from Whimsicott this turn. It's going to take an Electro Web for its troubles, but not able to stop the setup from Kosta's side. And I guess the question is, can Kosta sort of slow things down enough to still get a favorable position later, or are you going to be in a tough spot for the rest of the game as the Tailwind goes up?
Yeah, I think very interesting strategies coming out from both players, and the leads seem to be working out. Having the Incineroar, sort of catching the Weezing, that's a good opportunity, and then going for the fake out and allowing that important Tailwind to go up seems to be working well for Guzmán. However, these two Pokemon are just sitting here, not being able to do damage, so we'll have a lot of position coming out still from both players. It's also interesting that Kosta didn't opt to Dynamax Regieleki right off the bat, so he's also playing a little bit more patiently to see how he can manage the mid game.
Oh, but the miss from Electroweb means that this Weezing might not be able to get the taunt off before Incineroar can move. Such a crucial miss, potentially. Energy Ball coming out from the Whimsicott, doing only a little bit of, quite a bit actually, to Regieleki, and Weezing is still faster, so it's able to taunt Incineroar, even though Incineroar's only at -1 speed, and it can't use Parting Shot, so another turn of Tailwind down. Kosta's managed to stop this Whimsicott's terror of offense for Guzmán. One more turn.
Yeah, so both like the Incineroar, like both players know a little bit more of the training from the their opponent's Pokemon. So this Incineroar seems to be way slower than the Weezing, but it's still very a very even board state here, right? Like Regieleki is doing really as much damage as it can, like with all these Electro Webs, while Whimsicott like is doing what it should do, going for the Energy Ball into the Regieleki. You try and take it down, try and take out the fastest Pokemon on the field.
Yeah, so one more Electrode going out. Everything is as slow as can be on Guzmán's side. Whimsicott is still able to get the taunt off before Weezing moves. Even though it doesn't have Prankster, it's still faster because of Tailwind. But Sledge Bomb coming out this time, not taking the bait for taunting. And Whimsicott's gone, so there's only one more turn of Tailwind left for Guzmán, and no way to set it back up again.
Yeah, so finally some action here and going for KOs as both sides trade like Regieleki and Whimsicott away. So yeah, it really comes down to that last turn of Tailwind, whether it can help Guzmán make as much of an impact as possible, and whether Kosta can try and like use the Weezing to good effect and Dynamax strategically to try and get back in this game.
Yeah, so a tough spot for Kosta here because there is still this one turn of Tailwind where this Kyogre can attack. And we saw the taunt go off on Weezing, so Weezing might not have a safe way to stay in and protect itself. But if it faints, then Regigigas isn't a threat anymore. So a tough spot for Kosta. You need to make it through with one more turn before you have offensive pressure. And the question is sort of, is Kosta going to be able to do that, or will you have to give up a Pokemon because this Weezing is taunted and in a bad spot versus this Kyogre?
Yeah, I thought that taunt coming out from Guzmán, thinking a few turns ahead, kind of guessing that it has to be a Regigigas in the back. Going for the taunt in the Weezing just puts Kosta in such a difficult spot, because if Weezing goes down, then Regigigas just really can't make an impact in this battle. So let's see how things play out and like how Kosta tries to squeeze his way out in this situation. There could be some interesting moves at play here.
You mentioned my jaw dropping as Kosta reveals the moveset here. Possibly Guzmán is in for quite a surprise here as if we see what Regieleki winds up, what Regigigas winds up locking in. I'm very excited for this. All the abilities first have to activate because Weezing's finally left the field. This Regigigas cannot do quite as much damage. Calyrex coming in potentially on a Water Spout, setting up its as-one. Its abilities are reading off. But we're going to see potentially a whole lot of damage unless this Regigigas is able to stop the Kyogre from doing damage.
Wow, what an interesting play coming out from Guzmán, just hard switching the Incineroar out, like expecting that Incineroar has to help out a little bit more later, and Guzmán maybe like tries to prepare for something like a White Guard from the Regigigas and goes straight for the Kyogre. Like, this is the last turn of Tailwind, so I think it makes sense, right? You really have to start clicking that attack button. So amazing adjustment coming out. Kyogre is Dynamaxing, and unfortunately, like Regigigas has to just stay on the field and not double its HP. The White Guard comes out, but Guzmán just doesn't call it and goes for a Max Geyser and actually goes into the Calyrex slot. And Calyrex doesn't have that Focus Sash like we saw in game 1 and goes down just like that. But I think the good news is that like Regigigas has the option to Dynamax, except so many like small things coming out from removing the neutralizing gas. Regigigas is actually sitting at -1 attack, so this looks to be very dicey for Kosta moving on.
Yeah, Weezing was doing so much work that we didn't realize until it just left the field. It was blocking the Intimidate, it was blocking the Rain for Kyogre, but now all of those things have gone off. The Zacian has an attack boost, the Incineroar got its Intimidate off, and the Kyogre got Rain up. And that brilliant play from Kosta to try to Wide Guard to catch the Water Spout didn't work because the Kyogre happened to Dynamax. And so there's no longer as many tools for Kosta to get through the rest of this game. We've got just Weezing and Regigigas to try to close out the whole set against every single one, except for Whimsicott, of Guzmán's Pokemon.
Yeah, I think like it's the downside of running a Weezing Regigigas team. Like maybe a lot of the things, a lot of the plays that you make might get a little bit more predictable. And Guzmán is already one game up, so it seems to be that Guzmán is just reading Kosta really well, right? With all these plays, making full use of that last turn of Tailwind and Dynamaxing and kind of ignoring the fact that Regigigas can Dynamax as well. Since the Weezing was taunted, like why don't I just go for a more very powerful Max Geyser all the way there? So seems to be playing out, and Kosta has to Dynamax the Regigigas here. Like naturally Weezing has to protect here. So yeah, Zacian goes for the Beam of Blade actually into the Weezing, so that could be a way out if Regigigas is able to do meaningful damage here or even get some critical hits. But wow, look at how bulky Kyogre is, being able to take a very powerful max strike from the Regigigas.
Yeah, that Intimidate from earlier putting in so much work just by the fact that the Incineroar switched out after the Weezing way back when. And now that Max Geyser is going to come out into Regigigas, and in the rain, that's so much damage. This Regigigas only has a little bit of hit points and only a couple turns of Dynamax to use it. It's going to be a really tall order for Kosta to be able to come back here.
Yep, so Kosta kind of has to, like just do the correct moves, right, in this situation. But this just shows how powerful like Kyogre is and used in the right scenarios. I think a lot of players like using Kyogre, kind of using this core of Zacian Kyogre all the way to the end of Series 12. There is such a good reason for that, because your Pokemon are just so useful, so bulky, and still always being able to do so much damage while taking hits well.
Yeah, we talked about how much of a mind game there was for each side for what to bring. And it's interesting to see Guzmán just going with like the tried and true Zacian Kyogre thing. I know you're going to bring something really clever and interesting, and I'm just going to bring strong Pokemon that I know can handle whatever you bring. And we see Weezing not managing to secure that double protect, try to stall out the Dynamax from Kyogre's side, and so Weezing's gone, and because Weezing's gone, that means the Regigigas is a whole lot less threatening. It's half speed and half attack from its ability. And Zacian's attack raises again because the neutralizing gas has left the field, so this Zacian's at +2 attack now, just adding insult to injury as Kyogre goes for a Max Geyser into the Max Guard.
That was a curious play though. I didn't expect Kosta to do that. I kind of expected to just go for a Max Quick into the Zacian slot. Like you are really back against the wall. You just have to do like hope for the best and hope for critical hits. But unfortunately, like Guzmán just plays straight, right, and then targets the Weezing that protected the last turn. So yeah, Kosta just throwing in the towel here. Like what a tough match to play out, right? Like having your opponent making such good reads all the way through. So really props to Guzmán for doing that.
Yeah, props to Guzmán. I do want to say that last turn, I thought it was really nice for Kosta to try to just like do everything you can. If that double protect had gone off, then the Kyogre would have been out of Dynamax and Max Strike would have been a KO. And maybe there's some way to angle that into a win. It would have been a pretty tall order, though, because there's still that Incineroar in the back. You can just switch out Zacian and get your speed back and everything. But Kosta going for everything you could to just like try to be able to give Greece a chance. But it was not to be, and Guzmán has convincingly and very impressively secured Uruguay's advancement to the next stage. Congratulations.
Yeah, so with 4 wins, and how the group actually played out in terms of the wins, ties, and losses. So Uruguay gets to move through finally into the group stage in the Victory Road World Cup. So congratulations. And unfortunately, like Kosta, having to take this loss, Greece really has to, kind of go back and try and improve as much as possible moving on to the next year. It's been I think like maybe the schedule has been pretty tough, so it's been like this World Cup 1 and World Cup 2 has been a very tough run for Greece, but these players are always bring very interesting teams, always having a lot of fun here. So like also shout outs to that and commiserations.
Yeah, I think wonderful to see such bold plays for Greece, getting so close to advancing to that next stage. And I think that's got to light a fire in those players' hearts to make it through the next year. And really cool to see Kosta just going, I'm going to play as much damage as I can. I know there's a risk to this, but I think this is the best chance I have to get my team to advance. And it didn't quite pan out, but it was close. And I'm excited to see Greece next year.
Yeah, so and on the upside, we get to see Weezing Regigigas in action, but very tough going up against a matchup with the tried and true Zacian and Kyogre. So yeah, let's end this set off for Group I. So congratulations to Brazil and Uruguay for moving through. So coming up next, we have Group J. So this is Ino Shaka, from Israel versus Sai Qian from Taiwan. So don't go away.
Yeah, exciting matches coming up.